Your car still feels quick, it still pulls hard, and for a while everything seems totally fine. Then one day you notice a little whistle that wasn't there before, maybe a puff of smoke on startup. Maybe it starts using oil. Maybe boost doesn't hit like it used to. And the frustrating part is, a lot of drivers get to that point without realizing they've been slowly wearing out the turbo with everyday habits that felt completely normal. Here's the thing, turbochargers live a rough life. They spin insanely fast, they deal with serious heat, and they depend heavily on clean oil and good airflow. So when people say a turbo just failed, sometimes that's true, parts wear out, stuff happens, but a lot of turbo damage doesn't happen all at once. It builds slowly. Month after month, heat cycle after heat cycle, and this is where people slowly cook their turbo without realizing it. I'm not saying turbo engines are fragile. Turbo engines can last a long time if you treat them properly. But they do punish neglect faster than a lot of naturally aspirated engines. If you like practical car advice that helps avoid expensive repairs, subscribe, because this kind of stuff can save you a lot more money than most people realize. One of the biggest turbo-killing habits is driving hard before the oil is fully warm. This one is incredibly common, especially when people start the car, pull out, and get into traffic or onto the highway within a minute or two. The engine feels awake, coolant temp might start moving, and the car doesn't seem to mind. So drivers think it's fine, but oil temperature is the real issue here. Your turbo rides on a thin film of oil. That oil has to flow properly and protect the bearings while the turbo is spinning at crazy speed. When the engine is still cold, the oil is thicker, slower to move, and not doing its best work yet. So if you go heavy on the throttle too early, you're asking the turbo to spin hard before its protection is fully ready. That sounds small, but over time it adds up, especially on cold mornings, short trips, or if you're the type who likes getting into boost right away. You don't need to baby the car forever. Just drive normally for the first few minutes, keep revs reasonable, and wait until the engine is actually warmed up before you start leaning on it. Most drivers never think about this, because the car can still feel totally normal while the wear is building. The next habit is shutting the engine off immediately after hard driving. Now, to be fair, this isn't some old-school rule that means you need to idle for 5 minutes after every grocery run. A lot of modern turbo cars are better managed than older ones. But if you've just done a hard highway pull, climbed a long hill, towed something, or driven aggressively, and then you pull in and shut the engine off instantly, that's not doing the turbo any favors. Why? Because the turbo is still hot, really hot. And once the engine shuts off, oil flow stops. That leftover heat can basically bake the oil sitting inside the turbo area. Over time, that can leave behind carbon deposits, restrict lubrication, and shorten turbo life. This is one of those expensive problems that starts small. The fix is simple. After hard driving, give it a short, easy cruise before parking, or let it idle briefly if the turbo has been working hard. Not every stop needs a cool-down ritual, but if the engine has been under load, don't go straight from boost to key off like nothing happened. That habit is way more common than people think, and this next one quietly destroys a lot of turbo setups. Stretching oil changes too far, using the wrong oil, or not checking the oil level at all. A turbocharger depends on oil not just for lubrication, but also for cooling. So if the oil is old, dirty, breaking down, or low, the turbo feels that fast. A lot of people look at the oil change interval on paper and assume that's the whole story. But real life matters. Short trips, hot weather, stop-and-go driving, heavy acceleration, all of that is harder on oil. And turbo engines put extra heat into the equation. So if you're constantly pushing the interval, buying bargain oil that doesn't meet the spec, or never checking the dipstick between changes, you're taking a gamble with one of the most expensive parts hanging off the engine. The crazy part is, the engine may still run fine for a long time while this damage builds. No dramatic warning, no instant failure, just slower wear on bearings and seals until one day you're wondering why it's smoking or whining. If your car is turbocharged, clean oil and the correct oil matter more than a lot of people realize. Another bad habit is ignoring the early warning signs because the car still drives okay. This one gets people all the time. They hear a faint whistle and assume that's just turbo noise. They notice a little blue-gray smoke once and forget about it. The car feels slightly weaker but not enough to seem urgent. Oil consumption goes up a little. Maybe there's a check engine light, maybe not. So they keep driving, and that's where turbo damage quietly starts turning into turbo failure. A small boost leak can make the system work harder than it should. A seal problem can get worse. A worn bearing doesn't magically heal itself. And once the shaft gets enough play, things can go downhill fast. Most drivers completely ignore this warning sign phase because the car is still usable. That's the trap. If you notice new whining, smoke, a burning oil smell, weak acceleration, or sudden changes in boost behavior, don't just hope it goes away. Catching a problem early can mean a hose, a clamp, a leak, a sensor, something manageable. Waiting can turn it into a full turbo replacement plus extra engine cleanup. The fifth habit is treating a turbo engine exactly like an old naturally aspirated engine that could take endless abuse and basic maintenance forever. And this covers a bunch of small mistakes that stack up together. Constantly flooring it when the engine is already stressed, ignoring a dirty air filter, neglecting intake leaks, running poor fuel if the engine is clearly sensitive to it, basically demanding max performance while maintenance is behind. A turbo only works by forcing more air into the engine, so airflow matters. If the intake side is neglected, if the air filter is clogged, or if something in that system isn't right, the turbo has to deal with bad conditions while still being asked to perform. That extra strain and extra heat are not what you want long-term. Now, to be fair, flooring a healthy, properly maintained turbo engine once in a while is not abuse. These engines are built to make boost. That's the whole point. The problem is when people do it constantly while ignoring the basics. If the oil is overdue, the filter is dirty, the car is smoking a bit, it's making odd noises, and you're still burying the throttle every day, you're basically asking the turbo to survive on borrowed time. If you've dealt with turbo problems before, let me know what symptoms you noticed first, because a lot of people catch the same warning signs and don't realize what they mean until later. Most turbo failures don't come out of nowhere. They build through heat, oil breakdown, delayed maintenance, and driving habits that seem harmless in the moment. That's why this matters. Not because every turbo is doomed, and not because every failure is the driver's fault. It's because small decisions repeated over and over can absolutely shorten turbo life. The good news is the fix usually isn't complicated. Don't hammer it cold. Let it calm down after hard driving. Stay on top of oil changes with the right oil. Pay attention when the car starts acting different, and don't treat a turbocharged engine like it never needs extra care. Do that, and you give the turbo a much better chance of lasting a long time. Ignore it, and you may end up paying for a problem that took months or years to build. Subscribe if you want more simple maintenance advice that keeps your engine alive longer, because the smartest car owners usually aren't the ones spending the most money. They're the ones avoiding the big repair before it happens.